Thanks for joining. This is the last session, keeping you from something or another. So I hope. Thanks for hanging around, and hopefully this is a good session. My name is Nathan Thomas. I'm a district governor-elect in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, so District 7710. We're a kind of tight district, 200-mile radius, but 50 clubs and about 2,000 members. I grew up in this part of the country, so it's good to be back home here in Cincinnati. I want to share a little bit more about myself, my story with the Cincinnati Rotary Club, this type of work we do in Uganda, and some of the changes that are coming or have already been laid out by Rotary International with this new area focused to support the environment. But before I get started, I'd like to get an idea of who's in the room with us today. I know we have people from all over the country. Maybe we start over here with my friends from Louisiana. Let's just go around, share your name, what club you're in, size of your club, and what is the number one threat to your Rotary Club today?
I'm Lawrence Calhoun from the Rotary Club of Shreveport, as we all are, and I'm the current president. And I guess our number one threat, as I was just mentioning to Nathan, is not getting new members, it's keeping members. We've probably installed 20 members in the last 3 months, but we've lost 20 members for various reasons, and that's, to me, is the number one threat.
Retention, membership. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Martha, and I'm with the the Rotary Club. I do that too, with the Rotary Club in Shreveport also.
And I'm Judy Below. I'm Executive Director of Shreveport. I agree with everything what Lawrence said. Right now, we're also facing a price increase with food and a change in venue and things like that, smaller venues, so we're dealing with that.
And I'm Mark Snow, I'm the president-elect, and I did a Pete?
Peggy Factor, the Executive Director of the Lexington, Kentucky Club, and I'm sorry, I came in late.
What's the number one threat that your Rotary Club is facing right now?
Don't say Pete, please.
Well, a lot of challenges, post-COVID,
Yeah.
all those kind of,
Yeah.
where are we kind of questions.
My name is Bill Wilson with the Rotary Club of Lexington. I'm the president currently, and she's my boss.
That's the problem. We can do that facial recognition thing and realize that we.
Yeah, we'll have fun with that.
That's it? No other problems?
Well, I'm with her, whatever she says is what I
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll keep going. Come on over here.
I'm Jean West, president of the Louisville, Kentucky Club, and considering where we are for the session and the session we had today, I would say our number one threat as a Rotary Club, as well as the rest of humanity, is pollution in the water and air and the PFAS that are in our body. So, that and membership retention.
Thank you.
My name is Adeline Alanis Edwards, and I'm the Executive Director of the Rotary Club of Harrisburg in Pennsylvania. And my biggest concern for our club right now is financial sustainability.
Jay Murphy from Phoenix. I'm president-elect, and I think the fact that we lost our meeting venue of 30 years when COVID came along is our biggest threat right now, finding a new spot.
I'm Mark Cook from Wichita. We're right around 400. We were a little bit higher than that, but like everybody else, we dipped a little bit. I think we're at 397, but we're gaining really quickly. Our biggest threat, I think, right now we're talking about our service projects, trying to be relevant. We've got the historical, I'm in charge of our RIP program. We read 27 schools and books and stuff. We haven't been able to do that. And so trying to keep people engaged in service projects when we can't be there and doing that and keeping them engaged and active and doing what we really should be doing, trying to figure out what that is.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing. How about over here?
Lisa Mangione, and I'm with the Greenville, South Carolina Club. And our biggest threat would be membership and, well, maybe this new area of service will help us recruit some younger members. Hi, I'm Lori Johnson-Morosky, President-elect Springfield, Missouri Club. And we're about 215 in members, plus or minus. I would say probably my biggest concern, which may be different than my partner here, is recruiting younger members.
I'm Lisa Blumenstock, and I'm the current president of Springfield, Missouri Southeast Rotary. And I think our biggest challenge this year is keeping members or bringing members back into activity in the club whenever they were less active during COVID, trying to get them active again.
Jerry Barrientos from Tulsa, and I would say our biggest challenge would be membership engagement, just making sure everyone stays engaged with the older population and younger population and in between. So, and overloading our executive director.
Thank you, Jerry. Hi, Tina Miller with Rotary Club of Tulsa. I'm the executive director, and Jerry is our president-elect. And I'm here with David Wagner. I'm sorry, didn't mean to jump ahead, but I would say membership engagement, a lot of the same challenges the clubs are having.
Yeah, okay.
David Wagner, I'm the current president of Rotary Club of Tulsa, 283 members. Membership, retention of, particularly with the changing style, we're going from Zoom to hybrid to different types of meetings. So retaining those members who may not have been to every meeting, but it was the way we met, to now some of the new ways. So retaining that and recruiting the younger members. So that's
big changes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Over here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joanne Brown from Beaumont, Texas. Our club has about 220 members. I'm here with Jackie Chapman, our executive director. Probably I am in agreement with everyone. There's two key words, retention and engagement for the future. We are definitely in a transition year nationwide, internationally too. Jackie?
She's my boss, whatever she said. Jackie Chapman, executive director of our club, and yes, I think we all ditto each other that, right now the transition has been difficult for everyone, and we've got to focus on the membership because that's where we're driven. Projects, to have a project that the entire club can engage around is really a factor in that. I think we've hosted this conference, we've hosted some district conferences, and we had our centennial project like many of you did, and when you have those things going, those are both recruitment tools and they're retention tools because people have a purpose and have a reason other than showing up for a weekly meeting. So I encourage that as well.
Purpose, yeah.
I'm Gail Getz, and I'm the club administrator for Wichita, Kansas. My boss is way out there. And Mark hit the nose on the head. I think a lot of it has changed, which we've talked about, but another piece is that we're having an interesting transition, which I'm sure you all are, of shift, because more than half our members are over 60. They've done it this way forever. They want to continue to do it this way forever. Now we're getting a huge influx of younger members, which we need if we're going to continue to exist, but they don't relate real well. So how are we going to change the way we do things as a club to fill the needs of the younger members without alienating the old ones?
Mike Pepper, president of Jackson Mississippi Club, and membership. Everybody's already said.
Yep. Okay. Where are we at now? Back table?
I'll go. Maria Schell, I'm the president-elect of the Rotary Club of Portland, and I'm here with my brand new club manager. Skylar's only been on the job 2 months, so she probably has a lot of issues that she share. I think the way I would push beyond the engagement word is we are really struggling with how our voice and vision is responding to the DEI conversations, and how does that infiltrate and make the decisions of how our club is spending money, what service projects are we doing? Are we thinking about DEI beyond putting a committee together and having all like-minded people talk to each other? How do we get that throughout the entire 200 plus folks in our club? So how do we incorporate DEI into our engagement and retention work?
I think she basically said.
Now you know what we have up against us.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Beth Mamet. I'm here with my partner in crime, Adeline, from the Rotary Club of Harrisburg. And my biggest concern right now is membership, which I think goes hand in hand with finances, as Adeline said, and engaging those members and building a diverse membership. So that's more than one thing. So I'll just stop right there.
Well, thank you, everyone. I wanted to just get an idea of where we are geographically, but also the challenges we face. And I think what all of you have shared is very similar to what clubs in my district, clubs I speak to around the world share. It's membership, it's engagement. How do we reach younger people? How do we reach people who don't have a Rotary background? And my story, which I'll share a little bit with you, is it started with no connection to Rotary. And next year I'll be a district governor at age 29. And I think what all of us can do is find ways to get new generations, audiences interested in Rotary based on the programming we have and the types of opportunities they have, but then also to look further past just the new generations and just really engage other audiences. So my background is engineering. I'm an engineering and sales manager for a commercial vehicle supplier. I joined Rotary not too long ago. I joined in 2015. Joining Rotary was an important thing for me to do, and it's taken me from where I am to already further along my career than I could ever imagine. And
Where?
What's that?
Where are you? Which Rotary Club are you in?
The Rotary Club of Raleigh Midtown in central North Carolina. So Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah. So my story with Rotary starts back in 2009. I grew up about 2.5 hours up the road in Findlay, Ohio. And small town, but having a sense of wanting to give back in a larger sense. My parents were from southern India. I felt this incredible gift of education that they gave to me. So looking at my interests, my passions at the time, and thinking, how can I use this to help people in a part of the world that maybe is far different from mine, but where education should be equally important. So at the time, I would fix up computers, and I thought, let me collect computers, I'll fix them up, and I'll send them to a school or some institution somewhere in the world. I got on Google, I reached out to maybe 100 nonprofit organizations, everywhere from Africa to Latin America to Asia. Luckily, one organization in Pennsylvania responded, and they said, hey, we love the idea of your project, we'd love to work with you, and they happen to work in Kampala, Uganda. So I collected computers, put an ad in my local newspaper, and had 5-10 computers that I was ready to send to the school. And then I needed to figure out, well, how am I going to get them there? Now, this is back in 2009, not too long ago, but our computers didn't look like what Tony's using, right? They were the big desktops, the keyboards, and a lot that would have to go into it. And one of my teachers asked me, well, Nathan, have you thought about reaching out to our local Rotary Club? You should talk to Chuck Stump, who's president of the club. At the time, I had no idea what Rotary was. I said, well, what's a Rotary Club? And got connected with Chuck, went and visited the Findlay, Ohio Rotary Club, shared with them the idea I had for this project, and they were 100% on board to support me. And they even supported a trip for me to go to Uganda a year later. While I was in Uganda, I quickly realized that the challenges there were far greater than I had imagined. People didn't even have access to electricity. So what good is the computer if you can't power it? So I came back to the States. I just started my undergrad at University of Cincinnati studying engineering. But what I wanted to do is come back and take what I was learning in my classes every day and use it to build sustainable, low-cost solutions to help people in need. And I started a nonprofit organization called All We Are that year, and realized that several of my fellow classmates and friends at UC were interested in not just buying the t-shirt or the wristband, but really getting involved, rolling up their sleeves, and doing something to make a difference. And from there, we grew and we started focusing on some different projects, and that's when I came and visited the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. Walked in, they welcomed me like the Findlay Rotary Club did, and really taught me how to develop an international project. There's no playbook for a young person who wants to get into international development. Here's the 10 things you need to do, right? There's a lot of tough lessons to learn and best practices that people like all of you, Rotarians, have from just incredible experience working in different areas. And so working with the Cincinnati Rotary Club helped us shape a focus on providing access to energy to these schools. We said, can we provide basic access so that schools can go from looking like what you see in the left to what you see in the right. Unfortunately, what you see in the left is sometimes the best case situation in a lot of these communities, where there's no access to the grid or inadequate access. And what we're doing is going in with these installations and putting solar panels on the roofs of these schools and health centers, and in some of these larger installations, utilizing a part of their compound. So starting this project, working with the Cincinnati Rotary Club, we set this target to complete 50 solar installations in Uganda by 2025. And I've been working on this goal with this group of young professionals located around the country, and then working with a team in Uganda then to carry out the work. And so I asked the membership challenges and what your clubs are facing, because I think what's interesting to me is that I moved to Raleigh, I joined Rotary right away, found a club I could join, and missed a meeting and became president-elect. I shared this yesterday. And so from there, it's just one thing after another, right? And felt very supported by the people in my club, Rotarians in my district. But I think my friends, the people I have that work with me in San Jose or in Alabama or in Ohio, what I find interesting is none of them have joined Rotary clubs, and I think they're looking for clubs, and I think there's many young people who are looking to join Rotary clubs, and we just need to get the messaging right? That's where we need to be. So I'm going to share a little bit about the work we're doing and why I found personal importance in it, but seeing the value and the impact of the work on the ground, and then I'll share some of these upcoming changes that we're hearing Rotary is hoping to get into with this new area of focus. So the type of work we're doing starts with understanding the underlying problems in a country like Uganda. You see the stat here on the screen. Every time I do this presentation, I look at it, I'm amazed, right? 50% of the population under the age of 18. Nearly 75% of the population is under the age of 30. And this is a reality in several countries in the area and in a lot of developing countries. When Uganda received independence from the British in the 60s, there was about 4.5 million people in the country, and now there's 45 million people. So there's a incredible need to focus on solutions that are developing the infrastructure around education, but also developing a workforce for people to have jobs to work on. So the problem we're solving is this problem of unreliable power. A lot of the places have no access to energy. Lots of the places that do have access to energy, there's frequent blackouts. They're paying maybe 2 to 3 times as much as you and I pay for power in America from Duke Energy or whoever provides you power. It's not realistic for these people to access. So our solution has been our SUN program to put lights in classrooms like you saw in the before to after, and security lights outside. And then we're also working with health centers to do similar work, but also to provide solar refrigeration for vaccines. When we were developing this program, we were looking at it through the lens of being engineers. what I mean by that was we weren't green thumb guys who said, look, let's go right away to the solar panels, right? We were saying, how do we build a solution that makes the most sense from a sustainability perspective and one that would be cost effective? And so the first thing we thought of is, well, how do we look at other industries as examples of how we've developed and iterated on technology here in our country, and can we take some of that and see how that would maybe apply to the energy industry? And so, for example, we looked at telecommunications and looked at it being slow development that took several decades and even centuries to get to today, where all of us have a smartphone on the table or in our pockets probably. And a lot of the infrastructure that comes along with it, the government sign-offs, the delays, the things that come to add onto the price and to the time it takes to execute a process. And to contrast that, we looked at, okay, well, what's happening in Uganda or somewhere in Africa in a similar industry, where people are going from having no access to a phone all of a sudden to having a mobile phone in their pocket. And does that skip a lot of the infrastructure that we needed to develop here in our country to create the similar solution? So we considered, how does that come to play when we look at energy? And so here's sort of the traditional ways that energy is created in our country. And could we avoid a lot of that heavy infrastructure that's expensive and do these systems as off-grid solar installations with limited government involvement? So how it works. We start with the needs assessment. We really focus on working with a host club in Uganda that knows these communities, that know where the needs are, and understands how do we be successful with this type of project. So we work with the ATT Rotary Club in Kampala. They're going out and conducting assessments, understanding the needs in the community, and identifying possible partners. From there, we're working to design the system, we're fundraising, and we're getting ready to prep for the installation. When the installation happens, they start with wiring, putting up solar panels, and then finally the testing and the training. This can take between 4 days and 6 days. With this work, we're focused on sustainability, focused on investing in the local economy, buying locally, and then also to train and hire a local team to carry out all this work. Maybe the most important factor is the local buy-in, or the transactional value that we try to create with these projects. We've seen models of charity where people are given something and you come back a year later and that thing is no longer there or it's broken. Even if it's just 5% or 10% or 15%, it's important to us that these communities are financially involved in the success of the project. So to date, we've completed 35 installations. We have another 15 installations starting next week, and in total these will impact the lives of over 100,000 people. And so we've done a lot of this work by just focusing on a few initiatives, right? For my club, this is one of our major initiatives. This is something that we do year over year over year. We've done all of this work without a seventh area of focus to support the environment. So we're at this point now where we can't believe what might be possible now that we have this area of focus to scale our work. But I want to share this case study because this could be a reality for all of you with projects you do in your club. And often we don't approach the service we do as Rotarians, whether it's in our communities here in America or internationally. We don't approach them like this, right? We say, let's do the project here, focusing on this right now, and the next year someone else is going to be chair of the committee and they're going to want to do something completely different. And then someone else is going to come in and say, well, no, it's my turn, I want to do something different. And I think it's tough for us to then quantify the impact we're having as Rotarians. We're really diverse in the projects we're working on, but it's hard for someone on the outside to say, this is what Rotary is, or this is what this club is about. So this is how we've approached it. We've had a lot of great success, and that's not just with the impact, but how we've been able to attract people to join Rotary. So that's the how, the why, what we're doing, and how it affects our work. One thing to consider is how does it impact Rotary, right? And so with a lot of this work, people think supporting the environment, and they immediately think about, oh my gosh, what's happening in the world right now? We need to get cleaner and greener. That's why this is important, right? And lots of countries are declaring this climate emergency. And I think there's a lot of validity to that, and it's definitely an important part of what we're doing. But I always ask Rotarians, do we have an emergency of our own within our organization? And I think the answer is yes, we do. We have a membership emergency. We have an emergency where Rotary has been experiencing a decline in membership for the past 15 plus years in the Western world. This membership is propped up by places like Southeast Asia and Africa where Rotary is really growing. And in all of that, what's interesting to us is we're asking the question of how do we make Rotary relevant? And what we've missed, I think, for a long time is that the most fundamental or key issue for these new generations audiences that we're trying to reach is supporting the environment. And when you look at Rotary before the announcement of the 7th area focus, you saw incredible work with polio, which great initiative, we need to keep doing it, right? We're this close. Water projects, empowerment projects, but you didn't see maybe the fundamental thing that you were interested in, right? And so I think a big change we have here is that last year we created this standalone area of focus to support the environment. I do believe that what's possible under this area of focus is the most key topic that the new generations folks in your communities are interested in getting involved with. It doesn't have to be in Uganda, right? It could be in your backyard in the communities you guys live in. And I think these are important things for how we can be relevant and engage our members or prospective members today. But also it has a lot of significance and importance in who we are as Rotarians and the longevity of the work we're doing. Raise your hand if your club is involved with the Global Grant or has been involved with the Global Grant. Let's quickly just go around. What was your club doing?
We have a school in Haiti that we support and have taken computers and we got some grant funds to help with that. We haven't been able to do that for a while because of some of our national.
Okay. Someone over there? Yep.
Water purification in Peru.
Okay.
We do wheelchairs for and getting all the mechanisms so that you can have wheelchairs in Guatemala. So doing like road projects and things to make sure, because they have them and then they can't roll them anywhere.
An outgoing project with an bank in India, and this time we have an incoming project in our neighborhood, for a neighborhood that's really, underserved.
Great. Yep.
Solar panels in India.
Solar panels too? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And an incoming project we're working on for clean water in eastern Kentucky. Worst water in the country.
Excellent. Good.
Water wells in Maui.
Okay. Good. So we're seeing a lot of different types of projects. The one I highlighted here is a water project, but I think there's some synergy with sustainability and how we look at doing these types of projects for a lot of the different things you mentioned. So there's two reasons that this new area of focus I think really impacts Rotary in a very obvious way. I'm on the cadre of technical advisors for Rotary. Lots of our projects that we've funded, 1 year later we submitted the final grant, and it's now 2 years later, 3 years later, or 5 years later, these projects are failing in the field. And what you see there is a water well, right? A borehole or the hand-dug well, and then you see a diesel generator connected to that. That diesel generator is a nasty pollutant. The diesel is very expensive in a developing country, and you could run into so many issues where some part of the generator is broken up. Right? So these are the challenges we run into, that putting a solar panel or wind power would really change that. And the other thing is how the Rotary Foundation is changing how we fund grants. So all of you, or a lot of you, are familiar with global grants. You know how long they could take. Right? It could be a year, it could be 2 years. And what's happening is more and more people every year, every day are applying for global grants. It's gotten to the point where they can't continue to fund grants with the same mechanism that we had even just last year. So February of this year, they announced changes where the 50% match on club contributions is gone. The 100% match on the DDF is down now to 80%. And so what Rotary is saying is that we want you to keep doing the good work you're doing, and we want to see you continue to scale that. But there's a ceiling for what we can do, because we want to support as many projects as possible. And so what they're telling us now is that we need to go out and get other major partners to get involved with our work. Are we working in digging a well in Malawi, and right next door USAID is doing the same type of work, community away? Is there ways for us to connect there and connect our initiatives with another large international organization like that? For us to do that, we need alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, and supporting the environment and climate action are a key part of all of that. And so I look at the why for you, or the why for me, is the impact that it has on our clubs on a couple of different levels. One, that well that we had somewhere in the world, maybe it's powered by solar panels now. You get rid of the dirty pollutant. You have initial CapEx cost, but little to no maintenance costs after that. And then you don't have the hand pump well, you don't have a diesel generator where someone's turn it on or turn it off, or something could happen, and you run into less repairs down the road. So that's sustainability in our projects, which is a win in itself and very important. The partnership opportunities that we can get working with these other organizations make our work relevant and very timely in the communities that we're working in, and in settings where people are looking at, should I join a Rotary Club? Also, I think it's relevant in your community for people that we're trying to reach to look at the work we're doing and saying, this is the type of work I want to do. These are the things that I'm most passionate about, and there's 200 or 400 or 500 people in my community already going out to do that. Let me amplify my voice and join them and be a part of that. So I look at the big picture of how do our Rotary clubs look right now, and what could they look like? And I look at Rotary clubs maybe looking a lot like that top right-hand section of the graph up there. We've got those people. We have our Rotaract clubs. We've committed ourselves to elevating Rotaract. Rotaract today is very different than it was just a few years ago when I joined Rotary. What's missing here is the people between the age of 30 and 50. And a lot of times what we're doing is we're saying, we want to attract the missing link. Let's sit around a table and figure out how to do that. And often there isn't people between the age of 30 and 50 sitting around the table trying to understand what that demographic means. And one powerful way we can maybe make a step in that direction to understanding what they need is by looking at our programming and the types of projects we're doing to see if there's even just 1 or 2 or 3 people in our community that would want to join our clubs. And the type of impact that would have for them to be the ones at the table defining the agenda of what these people want. So I think baby steps, right? We gotta start in different ways and move forward, and everyone's club is different. But what I wanted to present is a case study of how you can scale a project and how that helps build an identity in your club, and how you can use it as a powerful tool to market Rotary and the impact you can have in Rotary to an audience. So that's a lot to cover. We still have plenty of time, but I wanted to pause for some questions, and then we can do some more breakout stuff after. Any quick questions on anything I've shared?
I have one about your project.
Yeah.
Our global grant was first turned down, it was a couple schools, a couple phases, because they said just because you electrify a school doesn't make the children smarter.
Yeah. So when was that?
We had to bring in a training program for like the parents on farming and to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
Not just the children.
And when did you apply for the grant? Before a 7th area focus?
Yes.
Or okay, yeah. So training and demonstrations for solar or any type of project is so very important. I ran into the same issue when I joined Rotary, and I applied for a global grant to provide access to energy to schools, and they said, well, you can't do that. You could maybe do that if it's an education program, and you have to completely build a curriculum into that. And I think that the challenge there was that we didn't have a area of focus that we could just go to and say, hey, look, this stands up, it has its own legs, it stands up, and now we do. So I'm hoping the type of work that you're doing becomes even a little easier, yeah. Anyone else, any questions?
This is more technical. How do you solar panels degrade, and then you generally probably have to use batteries. So how do you talk about diesel equipment and all that going down, you're gonna have the same issue with solar. How did y'all address those issues?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So solar panels are now rated 25-year warranty, but the big challenges we have is with deep cycle batteries and also with inverters, right, for AC systems. So what we've done is, the first step was to look at what was available readily in Uganda and quickly realize that the quality that we could easily find on the shelf in the store was not the quality we're looking for. So we pushed to develop supply chain where we could continue to buy local, but get Outback or Victron, the quality that you or I would say, let me put solar in my house, whether it's in Louisiana or North Carolina, those types of companies that have the higher quality things there. Yeah, we still have challenges with just operational cost of repairs, but it's nothing like some of the projects we've seen where the panel was designed in China for developing markets, and you can get 2 months, 3 months out of them. Good question. Anyone else? Yep.
What other clubs, or did you have just your club that participated in that global grant, or did you other clubs in your district?
We had other clubs participate.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Being a younger member, having the younger members, I was just looking at our club statistics, and we have like 4 members that are under 30 and 18 from 30 to 40. So how do you engage? I mean, we have some really great, we drill water wells in Nicaragua. I mean, we're known worldwide for some of the things that we do within our club. So
yeah.
How is it to engage those younger millennials, and maybe this was a multi-generational question, but how do we engage them in our current projects versus their need and want to make a difference and make an impact on the world of saying, no, this is what we decided to do as a group versus attacking on and partnering with us in our current endeavors.
Yeah. I think there's some element of being just interested in that type of work, right? So I'm sure there's some people that say, oh, well, this is not my thing. But I think a big point of separation for a lot of people walking in the door at any age, it could be a project, it could be just getting involved in a committee, is not knowing Rotary, and Rotary being so vast that you don't even know where to take the first step forward. And one of the last sessions, one of the things we talked about is if I didn't know anything about Rotary, I didn't know what Rotary was, none of my family members are Rotarians, whereas maybe some people, they're coming into Rotary and they might be new to Rotary, but Rotary isn't new for them, right? They remember as kids being in meetings with their parents. There's an element of mentorship that I think that we really need to develop for younger members, to say, hey, join this project and we're going to help you. You can do this and we're going to help you do it. Or join this committee and it's maybe a step into leadership that you might be interested in, but we're going to make you feel well supported. So that's been important for our club, and our president's 34 and president-elect is 28. How do you manage that in a meaningful way, right?
I want to add something, just a thought out that you're thinking there. One of the things I find hard with our international service for new members, I don't care what age, is we all talked about the global grant. Like, all the process of how Rotary International works is so confusing to new members. And oh, you have to partner with other clubs and you have to make sure you apply here. I mean, it's like a nose goes in our international service committee on who's going to do all the paperwork. And I find it's a barrier to entry for international service for new members, but I would say certainly when I joined as a younger member, I was like, oh, that's not for me. I'm not gonna have time to be a grant writer on the side. I'm not gonna have time to do all of that. So I wonder if there's ways, or if anybody has any, of demystifying the international grant. I mean, I don't even call it the granting process, but even all the projects, like I even hear yours and I'm like, oh, there's so much operational specificity that you have to think about. And I think for some of our newer members, they're like, this seems like a really time intensive thing. So that may be, I don't know if it's in how we do orientation, how we kind of demystify that, but I think that has been what we've seen why our younger members don't do it, because I went into it and it was like looking under a really confusing hood of a car. And that's my honest thoughts. I don't know if anybody's totally gets the international stuff, but I struggled.
I think to add to that, we had some of this conversation earlier with our club. You have the Rotary International, then you have the Rotary Foundation, and then you have the local club foundation. So now it's like,
And
which pocket is that one going in? Or should it come out of? So it's just like maneuvering through that department store the first time, or for the 10th year.
Yes.
I think when we came, my husband and I were doing probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I've lost track now, but we were already doing a international project and have been for over 30 years on our own, with our own organization. And so when we came in, someone mentioned to us about writing grants. Well, we already had our assessment, we're ready to go. And so the grant would have taken a long period of time. So the World Affairs Committee allowed us to raise money within the club. We have 3 signature projects. Uganda is one of our projects, Madagascar, and Ghana. And so we were able to, divide the years up and raise money. So we were able to hit the ground running, opposed to having to write grants and sit and wait. So when you get young people in, they're like, I don't have time for that. So there's another way to do it other than telling them up front, you have to write a grant, because it's gonna be a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
So you might want to go around that. Even if it's a $3,000 project, it at least gives them some buy-in, opposed to them trying to raise $15,000 and get matched and so forth. So this
And I hate that that's how Tony and I, as people who do grants, that's our suggestion is go around it, right? Because we shouldn't have to go around it as Rotarians. We should be able to invite people into our clubs and have them lead projects. But the reality is it's just so involved. And we need to do more as Rotarians, and I think Evanston needs to do more to make this process more streamlined for the amount of work that goes into it, and just the honest reality of the scale of the work. Think about, I worked on a global grant that was $55,000. I worked on it for maybe 2 years. $55,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot of money when you spend 2 years working on it, right? Right, and that's something that someone just getting in the door might not be willing to do.
So did I understand you to say that the 50% match is going away?
It's gone, yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much a disincentive to even go through that process.
Yeah, club cash isn't matched, and even DDF now went down to 80%. So it's really, you really need to look externally as well for money to make sure things work. Good questions. Any other questions? No? Good. So we still have about 30 minutes. What I'd like to do is get us in a couple different tables here. Maybe we're just fine as is with 3, 4. Yeah, okay, just at your tables. We all have different projects. Talk about your projects, and I'd like for you to come up with one project that's going to be the one that you share. And what I'm looking for is how could you add an environmental element to the project? It could be a local project with Habitat, it could be an international project with the well, or anything in between. So share a little bit about the projects that your club is doing or has done, and how could you add an environmental impact to it. So the idea was to get you guys talking, share ideas between clubs. What I'm interested in now is you've talked about your projects locally or internationally. Share a little bit about the project you selected. It could be a couple different ones, and how you could do something to support the environment through that initiative. So I believe, Gene, you're up first. You were Listen up, guys.
Rotary International collaborated with the American Queen Steamboat Company. It has all the steamboats along the river, the Delta Queen, American Queen, all of those boats you see, etc. To create the first Rotary service cruise. The idea is a 5-year project to assess and clean the waterways in the United States, starting with the Ohio and Mississippi River. So we launched from Louisville. The project is called Saving Our Rivers. And at 9 stops, 9 cities, in each city, there are 166 passengers on the American Dutchess. Each city, Rotarians disembarked and did a service project along the river. And the service projects, it was district-wide, District 6710, it's the Louisville area district. Each a city had a service project connected to the river. Like, for instance, directed by the students from Western Kentucky, for instance. In one stop, they tested the river water. And one stop, one city in Onsboro, Rotarians stencil the sewer grate tops to indicate, because people don't realize that when you dump stuff in the sewers, it goes right to the river. There's no filtration. So stencils that said, don't put your motor oil here, and don't put your gas here on the street. And so for 8 cities, it was a 9-day cruise. At the end of the cruise, there was a round table where a lot of the research was presented from the students. There were PFAs in the Ohio and the Mississippi River. So the idea is for 5 years, the project will cover rivers all over the United States. And then after 5 years, the project will go international, which is why Rotary International is collaborating. So they're looking at the Nile, the Ganges, the Amazon River, tributaries internationally.
Wow.
So if you want any information, I mean, we have, we've been working with the Steamboat Company and International. We have kind of a template. I'd love to share it with you if you're, especially the river communities. Baton Rouge, I think, we're going to do Baton Rouge, New Orleans, that's the next.
We got the Red River.
That's correct, right, and so I think that river area is going to be like the next year. So there's going to be a launch of rules.
This is what is your
That is a great project. A lot of potential to grow that.
Well, it's district-wide, so all our Rotary clubs along the river were involved.
Congratulations.
Sorry,
That's an idea, that's it.
6710.
You never won. That's your card.
District 6710.
The other half of Kentucky.
That's the other half, that's right. You have the other half.
We don't have the water.
You don't have the right, well, you have the
Yeah. Well, excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll go over here at this table.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tina Miller, and I'm with the Rotary Club of Tulsa. And we have a water well project that we started in 2002 in Nicaragua. And we have since inception, we've drilled over 600 water wells. We work with our partner club in Leon. So at the very onset of our water well project, we had a driller that would go down and volunteer his time 4 months out of the year to be there to drill. And in that time frame, he worked with Nicaraguans, and over all these years, they've actually trained them where they can drill on their own. So Mickey no longer goes down to Nicaragua and is our driller, but they are actually drilling. We pay them, and we also fund the project through our club foundation, not through a global grant. Also, we have a lot of district partners and other Rotary clubs that will sponsor a well, and it's truly an amazing project. I don't know what else that we kind of covered. As far as the second part of it was their hand cranked pumps that water well, and
Maybe you can put solar panels there or something.
yeah, that could be a thought. So
Good. It's a great project.
thank you.
All right, where are we going next? Over here.
We didn't talk about specific projects, but we talked about how our clubs get involved in international projects, how it is spurred, bringing ideas forward. How do you mix younger members, older members, and the difficulty of filing paperwork to get assistance for carrying out the project. So we've hit on a number of those things.
Yeah. Any key insights on any of those points to share?
Never speak up. Because you may get the job of having to do it.
Is that
Right? Yeah. So.
Okay, all right, go over here.
We have a club project. We're in the third year of our 3-year commitment for a nonprofit called Common Ground. And Common Ground is in an area of Shreveport that's underserved. Their primary function is feeding families, education, and clothing families. Our global grant is a computer classroom that we're working with a partner in Mexico with. And you talked about how do you add an environmental element to that. Well, Common Ground sits on 3 acres. So they have some land around it. It's an old church building built in the 30s, got offices around it, and that's what they work out of. So what we discussed amongst the 3 of us was we could do a landscape project with pergolas and gardens, either flower gardens, being a food distribution center for that neighborhood. We could even do a vegetable garden and teach the kids in the neighborhood about how to grow their own food, do their own vegetables. And when they grow it, it goes right back to them in their community. And then have make education and environmental combined to help those kids learn how to sustain themselves.
Yeah, that's great. Lots of great opportunities for local projects, international projects. I shared with the group earlier. There's a club in our district that works very closely with Habitat for Humanity. And they built houses and wanted to do something environmentally focused locally. And they decided to, hey, let's put solar panels on the roofs of these Habitat homes. And they were able to get contributions, in-kind contributions from solar companies, some money from the electric company Duke Energy in our area to do that work, and it's just taken off after a year. I don't think they've even done any grant at this point. It's just other partners coming in and loving the idea of the project and scaling it. So there's so much that we could do. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining this session, for being here in person after a long time. I want to say thank you to Tony. Tony's been my scribe for the past 4 sessions together, taking great notes that we're really going to share. And thanks to all of you for joining. That concludes our session. I hope you enjoy the evening and safe travels home. If I can be of service to you in any way, my contact information's up there. Feel free to send me an email if it's about supporting the environment or about anything. If you're looking at how do I build a new generation's influence in our club, send me an email. I'd love to chat. Thank you, everyone. Take care.